We're part of a church plant where we believe miracles can happen. And we're in one, in a way. And so I'm excited to talk to you on this beautiful Easter morning about the miracle that God has for you and what you and I get to be a part of, not just today, but every day. Pretty crazy story I heard. This is actually recently, where there was a lady who got done shopping. She was in the car on a phone with a friend, and the groceries were in the back seat, and she was talking on the phone. All of a sudden, she heard a loud bang. And she wasn't sure what happened, but it shook her to her core, and she reached back to feel the back of her head and felt something warm and gooey, and thought, oh no, this is the end. You know, her life flashed before her eyes, and thought that she had been shot, and that there was a hole in her head, and she was unsure what she was doing, and she dropped the phone and just thought about what's going to happen to my family, and what happens next, and this is that moment. And her whole life was in front of her eyes. And someone walked by and kind of saw and heard this loud bang and wasn't sure what had happened to this lady, and she just was in shock. And he said, you know, ma'am, are you going to be okay? And she said, well, I think I've been shot. I'm not sure what's happening. I don't know. And he kind of looked at the situation a little more, looked in the back seat. And she had her groceries, and some of the Pillsbury dough can had exploded. And dough hit the back of her head. And so it was just a piece of dough back there, but she thought that was the end. And you know, those things, they're serious. I don't know if you caught that thing just right, and it'll get you. So she had that moment where she thought her life was over. Thought about what she'd do, what would happen next. Now, I'm sure, at least I hope, nobody's had a moment like that. But in one way or shape or form, we've all had moments where we wonder what happens next. About when this life is over, what comes after that. Your life might flash before your eyes for some moment. It seems like, too, if you know, I remember being younger, and if I was skateboarding or doing some silly thing as a kid, and I'm about to get hurt, you have that split second where you're like, oh, this is going to be bad. And time just stops. You get to evaluate. You don't really do anything any different than you would have, but that moment. And so I think sometimes it's good to reflect on that moment as you think about what your life is all about. And so I think for us it's important to realize that death is a part of our story. Not my favorite part, but it's something that's going to happen to all of us. And we rarely think about it. In fact, it's maybe the only certain thing that we know in life, and yet we spend very little time thinking about what happens after. And so this story, what we're going to talk about this morning, I hope will give you some hope. It will give you some solutions, some peace, knowing that there's more to the story. Another story where there's a father and son in a car, and they're on their way to in town, and the son is definitely afraid of insects, specifically bees, and lo and behold, a bee goes flying into the car, and the son is freaking out, and he doesn't want to get stung, and so the dad kind of pulls over and just grabs the bee out of midair, pretty cool dad, and holds it for a second, and then just lets it go, and he's flying around in the car a little bit more, and he says, son, you know, don't worry, it's okay. And the bee finally leaves the vehicle, and he opens up his hand to his son and says, look, it's stung me, I've got the stinger. It's not going to hurt you. The son finds some relief. And you know, I think that's what Easter's about. I think it's one of those things where you and I can be deathly afraid of many things, death being one of them. But we've got this good Father who grabbed the bee and took the sting for us. Right? And so we don't got to worry about it. We might still see it wasn't around causing problems. But the stinger's gone. Death has no sting in your life anymore. There is good news that you get to experience every day of your life. And here's the thing, I completely believe God still works miracles. The part that I struggle with, I think that we do together is miracles are usually connected to a problem. And it'd be nice to get miracles in our life, we just don't want to have to deal with the problem that comes with it. Because odds are, if you want a miracle, you've got to be in a situation that needs one. And I don't know that we want to be. And so it seems like the bigger the problem actually gives the bigger the opportunity for the miracle. And so we're going to talk about what kind of big miracles God does. And this text, this story is so cool. We've been, as a church, walking through the life of Christ and what he's been doing. And so this miracle is very, very special, very significant. This is in John 11. It's going to be up on the screen. Justin's going to read it here in a minute. But this is the story of Lazarus and what happened to him and how he experienced something that changed everything. And this is one of those many miracles. Jesus had been doing miracles. This is like the 34th miracle in the chronological order, if you look at things a little bit, and there's something very special about what happens here, where what once was a tomb, Jesus turns into a waiting room, and that there is something more to his story. His ability to overcome death is so wonderful. So if you have your Bible in front of you, you can definitely follow along with us. This is John chapter 11. We're going to be reading 17 through 44, but we're going to start off with verses 17 through 22. So it should be on the screen, but go ahead and take a listen to the scripture this morning.
Now when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off. And many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, but Mary remained seated in the house. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you."
Awesome, thank you for that. And so the first thing I want you to see in this text, we're going to kind of walk through this together, is that the hope that Jesus does give to us. Now, this first chunk of the text, I want to kind of break down and talk about Martha and in the context of the situation. It was Jewish tradition that thought on the 4th day after death, that's when the soul would leave the body. That the soul would stick around for the first 3 days, but when decomposition and things kind of set in, that's when the spirit, the soul, would leave. And so there was a new level of despair for Martha and Mary as they realized their brother had gone, and that was the 4th day. And so as Jesus arrives, it's very interesting to me the phrase and what exactly Martha says to Jesus. She comes up to him and says, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Now, this is just my opinion, but when I see this and understand the context, Mary and Martha, you might have heard them before. They're kind of these two sisters that represent very different ways of approaching Jesus. Earlier in the Gospels, you see this encounter where Jesus comes over and Martha's busy in the kitchen preparing, doing what she thinks you should do when you're around Jesus and doing all the stuff that you ought to do. And Mary comes and just sits at the feet of Jesus. Martha says, "This is wrong. She should be in the kitchen with me. Why don't you do something about it?" And Jesus is like, "No, actually, she's got the right perspective." And so there's this relationship already previously built up. And so when Martha comes out, he would still be alive if he would have been here. I feel like there's anger. I feel like there's a bit of an attitude of this. And so she's overwhelmed. She's not happy with the situation. And she knows that, I know you can do whatever you need to do, whatever you ask in the Father's name, things will change. But if you had been here earlier, then it would be different. And so why did you do it like this? I don't think that Martha had challenged Jesus' ability. I think she's unsure of his heart on why he would do this. Why wouldn't he come when she felt like he needed to be there? And one of the first things that I see in this is there is a consistent hope in Jesus. And what I notice in that is the time for him is very different than what it is for us. And so for her, there was a situation where she realizes, God is in control. He is who he says he is. He can do anything that he wants to do, but here's my situation, and why didn't he change it? I know that he's all powerful. I know that he can do anything, but this just devastated my life, and yet he was late. You ever relate to something like that where you know he's there, but you don't understand why he would let happen what's happened in your life? And I feel like that's a part of the human story, the human condition that we're all a part of. I love what Oswald Chambers says, where he says, sometimes it looks like God is missing the mark, but that's because we're too short-sighted to see what he's aiming for. And so I think there are moments in life when we got to change our perspective. And there might be things that in our eyes, in our perspective, may seem at its worst. That life has been radically devastated and everything's not looking the way you thought it was supposed to. But maybe that's because our perspective is not what it should be. And so he's consistent in his hope, and his timing is not our timing. And so Martha, she wanted it to be a certain way, and because of what she knew, all that she knew, this was the end. He was gone, his soul was gone, the whole thing just looked like it was a disaster. But Jesus, he could have been there earlier, actually, too, but he chose not to. And I even think that's on purpose. I think there are plenty of stories in the New Testament where Jesus is the healer, and you see his healing ability. But this is a key story where you get to see his ability to overcome death. And his timing, I think, obviously for him, is perfect. I heard this story before. This is nuts. This happened in 1876 in Minnesota. Lots of farming state, lots going on with that. And there was a really, really bad summer where the grasshoppers had overcome the property and devastated the profits and the crops of all these farmers across most of the state of Minnesota in 1876. And so as the new year was coming and the new time to plan and get ready for it in the spring of 1877, they shut down the school on this Monday morning, so we want everyone to get together and pray that we would believe that God would do something about this, because we don't want those grasshoppers to come back. It's getting ready to be that time again, and that would devastate us if that happened. And so they got together, called it kind of their National Day of Prayer in Minnesota in 1876. You can look it up, and they stopped what they were doing and prayed, hoping that God would not put them in that situation where there was no hope. And so they prayed, and the next day the sun came, and it was getting ready for that full summertime as they expected it would be. And they saw all the larvae for all the bugs, the grasshoppers, and they thought, well, I guess he didn't hear it. He's not going to do anything about it. And cool days went by, and the sun was still out. They were getting bigger, and they thought, okay, this is how it's going to go down. And then out of nowhere, on the fourth day, a frost, as if poison or fire came over the properties all throughout Minnesota and killed all of these grasshoppers before they even had a chance to get to it. And they kind of made this, if you look into their history a little bit, kind of the day that God answered the prayer of the people. And they remember that day, and I think that's pretty crazy that not necessarily even that God would do that, but it wasn't in the timing that they thought. Now, it came when God needed it to, and so, again, there's lots of stories where perspective is not what you think it might be. And I got a lot I want to talk about, but I know if we got a chance to just sit and talk together, I could tell you stories upon stories about where I thought God was going to do something at this time, and he didn't. And he did it over here, or a year later, or many, many years later. And if you look back, Christians, at the faithfulness of God and how his timing was not always our own. And that, to me, actually is a really, really good thing. And I learned it this way, to where we are confined, we are restricted to the linear course of time. There is no way you can adjust the fact that you're getting older, that this event is coming up and this situation is happening, and we're all under that. Now, it's easy to assume that God is as well, that he's going to have to deal with things the way that we have, but it's so marvelous to me to think about that if time is moving in a linear path, that I would be like God, and he can just kind of look around and see whatever perspective he wants to. He's not confined to the limit of a linear time frame that you and I are. In fact, he's conquered all of that. And so he can do things however he wants to do that. And that's one of the things that I love about this story, is I think as Jesus is showing many, many things to Mary and Martha and all the people that hear the story to come. One of the things that I think he wants us to hear is that don't be afraid that his timing is not your own. And there will be situations where you might feel like you need more of it, or that time has put you in a really tough situation, but don't doubt that there is still hope. And that I love and I don't know that Martha understood all of what was coming out of her mouth, but she says, that I know you have the power to do this. I know you say who you say you are, and that even now you can ask whatever you need and God will be. And I think that phrase is huge. And I want you to think about what it means that regardless of the situation you're in right now, and it might look like all hope is lost, but that even now there is hope. Even in those moments where you think there is no chance of any restoration, there are stories upon stories of that moment where it seems like all hope is lost, and the King of Kings and the one that gives hope shows up. And so know that just even in your day-to-day calendar, in your time, and your schedules, and all the things that can keep us busy, God is Lord over those things. And he's given us the power over time because of his great miracle. And he shows it a little bit here. But man, there's a lot more I want to kind of keep going. We get to see more about what happened. So if you would pay attention here to the screen, or jump back into your notes to your scripture, John 11, now verse 23 through 30, talk more about what happens with Jesus and these ladies.
Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha said to him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord. I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world." When she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary, saying in private, "The teacher is here and is calling for you." And when she heard it, she rose quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him.
All right, this one's fun. So there's some more hope that Jesus wants to show us. This one, again, is my opinion on what I think Martha is going through. I sense there's a bit of a rebuke to Jesus, that she thinks, if you would have been here, this would be different. But man, what she says right now, really kind of to me, I see a whole different side of this that unfortunately I can relate with. She goes on to kind of say, this is what's going to happen. I understand this. And she says, that he'll rise again when everyone else is on that last day. She gets the resurrection in the future tense kind of idea, which is actually a big deal, because that idea at her time wasn't as much of a popular concept, but that resurrection through Christ would happen for everybody. And so she gets that as far as that's going to happen later. But one of the things that I'm picking up on her tone and what she's saying, and you'll see why here in a second, is that I think she really is just angry with the situation. You are who you say you are. You're the Son of God. You're going to do these things. I'm going to go with my sister. And then it says this. I love this. She goes to her sister Mary, and she says, the teacher, he wants to see you. Man, if I knew all the things that Martha did, and I understood that he was the Savior, that he was the King of Kings, that he could do anything, and then I turn to go to my sister and say, that guy that is a good teacher, he's here. That title to me, and again, it's my opinion, that title, why would she give him that title? Of all the titles to pick. And I think she's in a position where sometimes things get so devastating and you can lose so much hope. If you've ever been around any kind of death, any kind of hurt, and you see someone that you love and you want to share something with them, but maybe you don't even want to open up your mouth. Sometimes it just seems so tough. They don't want to hear anything. And sometimes just being there is really, really special. I think for her, man, she is so past any kind of message of hope. She's got enough people already telling them, oh, Lazarus will be with you in heaven forever. You're going to have. She's like, you know what? I think even when Jesus is speaking to her, she's just kind of playing along, but the words of God at this point for Martha, in my opinion, are meaningless. Okay, I get you. I'm just going to get my sister. And I think she's overwhelmed by the devastating truth that her brother's gone. And I don't know about you, but have you ever been in moments, Christians in the room, where you might know that God is who he says he is, and you might know that he says he's the Savior, but you've heard enough of that enough times, and now you think, you know what? I don't need to hear more of that. The teacher is here, he's got something to say, but I'm so done with that. And so I think one of the things I noticed in this story is that she misses the point on a lot of different levels. And I would hate for any of us to be in a place in life where when the worst pain comes into our life, we are so callous to the gospel that we don't want to hear what Jesus has to say. And I think that's what happened. And so there is a misperspective for her to figure out. One of the things I've seen in people, and it's kind of a funny illustration to point to it, but there's a pretty cool climbing trail. This is in the Alps somewhere I've never been before, but it seems kind of crazy idea, where lots of people go down this trail, and there's a huge cross, massive cross, enough to where people want to stop and just kind of marvel at this. And so a couple of explorers this one time kind of went a little closer to the cross and saw that there was another path. They went behind it. Now that path had been overgrown pretty serious, and there was kind of a shrine behind it that opened up into an empty tomb, symbolizing resurrection. And I thought that was pretty interesting, because how many people just kind of know the path that gets to the cross, and then that's kind of where the story ends. I mean, I think sometimes you've seen the movies, you understand the pain that happens in crucifixion, and so we can stop with the dad hold the stinger and we have hope now, right? And so sometimes Christians, I think we stop at the fact that Jesus died for our sins. And if you stop there, if you don't continue up the hike or find that there's another trail, you can end thinking that all your life is one big apology because he messed up to the Creator. And sometimes if you end there, you could think, I don't know if this is really for my benefit, and if this is just kind of a pity party that I'll eventually get through. Or maybe you just think that this story has no meaning in my life anymore, that there is no reason to call him Lord, to even hear what he has to say, because I know where this goes, and it's not a happy ending, and there's no point. And so if you've kind of grown bitter to the truth of the gospel, if you've been in a situation in your life where there's been so many devastating moments, enough loud, painful rings in your ear that you can't hear the still small voice of the King saying, it's not over, then this might be for you. I unfortunately can relate with her. And some of us that have been around Jesus for a little while, man, sometimes it's easy to get deaf to the truth of the gospel. One of the things I thought about this morning that broke my heart is that I didn't want to come to you and present a new spin on an old story. I don't ever want to get to the place where the resurrection of Jesus Christ where the resurrection power that lies in us is old news. That still is real, and that still changes lives. But I think the problem is we've missed where the story goes. Because I think it isn't just an end of the story, but it's a miracle that happens then and now and for you and for always. And so there's a courage in this that I want you to be challenged by. I want you to think about the fact that when Jesus shows up, it's pretty cool because her response is she says, hey, I know that on the last day he will be resurrected. That opens up a response for Jesus that I underline quite a bit. A lot of you have in your Bibles as well. That he says, no, you don't understand. I am the resurrection and life. I have conquered these things. And it's really cool because any funeral that Jesus shows up to, it doesn't work. There's no scenario where death and Jesus can be in the same place because Jesus overcomes that. And so there's that miracle in there I just need you to hold on to. The problem can be is that we want miracles in our life. We don't want the problems to come with it. I don't want to be in a situation where I need a miracle. It'd be so cool if life could just be the way it's supposed to and go the way I want it to, and then God would give me miracles and then I would believe him a little bit more than I do now. But I don't think that it works like that. And I think Jesus has courage and he calls us to have courage as well. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more here in just a second. But there's more to this story. I'm trying to get through all this, a lot of good stuff for you guys. So if you would turn your attention again to the screen, and we're going to read John 11, verses 31 through verse 40.
When the Jews who were with her in the house, consoling her, saw Mary rise quickly and go out, they followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to weep there. Now when Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet, saying to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in his spirit and greatly troubled. And he said, Where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. Jesus wept. So the Jews said, See how he loved him? But some of them said, Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man also have kept this man from dying? Then Jesus, deeply moved again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. Jesus said, Take away the stone. Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, Lord, by this time there will be an odor, for he has been dead 4 days. Jesus said to her, Did I not tell you that if you believe, you would see the glory of God?
Awesome. All right, moving right through this. One of the special verses in there you might have read before, but lots happen here. And I just noticed the perspective changes, the situation changes. You've got Martha starts where she comes out to meet Jesus. If you would have been here, it'd be different. And I just feel that tone from her. This one, and again, I've read this enough times, but I just saw it different. I felt like Mary comes running out. Just her tears were so heavy that one of those runs where she might have been falling just to get to him, overwhelmed by like, why would you let this happen? And I think he sees this, and scholars love to ask and debate, what made Jesus cry? What was the situation here that made it so devastating? And my opinion is that I think he saw the hurt in people that he loved, and that compassion that he has for his people that overwhelmed him. But a little bit more specifically, I think he realized, man, death, that was not a part of the plan. The results of the fall of mankind put death into the equation, but I think he was overwhelmed, not just by a sorrow, by tears of remorse, but I think there was a righteous anger in him that said, man, this is not the way it was supposed to be. This is not what I wanted for my people. And as he is in definition life and gives life and is the resurrected life, when he saw death and the consequences that it brings and the sting that it can leave into people's hearts and their minds, that was not okay with him. It brought him to those tears. That Jesus wept because he realized in your life he did not want death to be part of the equation. And not just for her, not just for Lazarus, but for all people. And so there is so much to him. And one of the things I love about this is that in life there's those people that you just kind of need a shoulder to cry on when things are really tough. And Jesus got some pretty broad shoulders, and he's okay with your tears. In fact, he knows all of them. There's a compassion in him that I have barely yet to understand. I think it's kind of cool, and some of you know this, but in sign language, if I were to say Jesus, it would be put my hands on put my fingers on my palms to represent Jesus being crucified, right? His hands were pierced. And just that little visual Man, if I ever doubt his love for me, I can just remember, that's right, he did that. He held the sting in his hand, right? If I ever doubt the compassion of Christ, I can just think of what it meant to die on the cross. And all the pain that goes with that. I know that there was a love for me, for you, that I did not deserve. That he has given me more than I ever can comprehend or fathom, and I get to be a part of that forever. And I love, again, these broad shoulders, because on one hand, he wants to be there for you when you hurt, and when you cry, and when you're broken, and he's ready to be there for you. But at the same time, you need those friends in life, not just to kind of have to share your emotions with and be able to cry, but you need those friends too. You want those people where they can fix the problem. They can change the situation. And what's really cool about Jesus is he does both, right? He's not just going to be that person that kind of has to hear your story and hope that it works out for the better. He's going to change it. He's also not the friend that just, hey, let me hear how we can fix this and let's move on. He wants to let you pour out all your hurt, all your emotion, and in the same moment, jump around and fix it. I love this because I think in the same way death has stolen friends and family from our life, Jesus has the ability to steal them back and doesn't let them keep where they were and to stay in that situation, because for him, and I love this, it seems like when death comes, it's not the end of the story. And I love what he says, that, didn't I tell you that you would see God's glory if you believe? Because the end of this little section here is actually really fascinating to me, is that as Mary, they realize, okay, well, if he's been in there for a couple days, if you do bring him out, like, he's not going to smell good. I don't read too often anymore the New King James or the King James Version, but it says, he would stink it. I just think that's a hilarious word you don't hear a lot. But they understood, wait a minute, so if he actually does this, holy cow, I didn't think this would actually happen. And so sometimes we can do the same thing. God, would you fix this problem in my life? Would you change my situation? But when he says, yep, I am the resurrection of life, and I'm going to do it. And it's like, wait a minute. No, don't actually, because it's going to stink. Like, I don't know if I really want you to do this. This is a big deal. And so God, he is who he says he is. He is consistent in the hope that he brings you. Right? He is courageous in the fact that you might expect certain things, but he is more than that. He calls you to it as well. And that's one of the things I love about the hope that Jesus calls us to. Is it isn't something where you can just kind of sit back and watch, but it calls in you to have a hope that is courageous, that requires you to think about some things in a way that you might not do that, because he says, and again, I love that verse, didn't I tell you that you would see God's glory if you believe it? A lot of you, we can pursue God, but when he really wants to be in our lives, it can be easy to say, well, all right, I got a little bit too close. A lot of the times we see Christians and people that want to know more about God, and they find that he's exciting, and he really is who he says he is, and he's interesting, and he's fascinating, and he's real. But then, okay, hold on a second. No, I've got to change all this stuff in my life. I've got to do all these things different. I don't know that I want that much of it. Like, let me get a little bit to where it's exciting, but not enough to where I got to radically deny who I am and be a part of this. That's a big deal. And so there's a courageous hope that he calls in you and created you to live. That it isn't just kind of watch me as I'm Jesus do these things that change the world. I want you to be a part of this, and you're going to experience some things. It requires you to have some courage. Because we all want miracles in our life, but the problem is that it comes with a catch. You've got to take that risk. If you want to see God show up in your life, you need to do some things that will require God to show up in your life. You need to make some decisions, do some things where you would see him step into your life. And the last part is, in my opinion, the best part. We kind of get to see something that brings us all together. And so we're going to read the last couple of verses, and then when we wrap this up, I got some cool stuff I want to share with you. But verse 41 through 44, go ahead and read that.
So they took away the stone, and Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I said this on account of the people standing around, that they may believe that you sent me. When he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The man who had died came out, his hands and feet bound with linen strips, and his face wrapped with a cloth. Jesus said to them, unbind him and let him go.
I see that there's a consistent hope that he has conquered time. There's a courageous hope that requires you to do more than just sit back and watch. There's a compassionate hope that says he cares about you in ways that you don't understand. And last but not least, there is a conquering hope. There's more to it. What I kind of want you to do is back up to verse 43, and it says, Lazarus, come out. Just kind of to yourself, put your name in that spot. That instead of the idea that he was the one that would experience what it means to be brought back to life, that Jesus called in a loud voice, miracles still do exist. He still is in the business of bringing what was dead back to life. And so I want you to see how powerful that might be. And this is a crazy illustration where there's a group of people. There was two ships. They got in a crash. They collided in 1914. This is in the Atlantic Ocean. It was freezing cold. And the boats were going down. And so there were 109 men from the Salvation Army that were found dead after the wreckage. Come to find out that these 109 men were willing to give up their life vests for the other men, strong men and women and children, of course, in this horrible situation. And so when some of the surviving victims were asked why did these 100 men give up their life vests, and one of the guys said, well, one of the guys I was talking to said, you can take my vest, it's going to be just fine. He said, and I quote, that I could die better than you can. I thought that was kind of a crazy idea. And so this man had asked, the Salvation Army, what are you talking about? Well, I know where I'm going after this. I have hope. I understand that this is a horrible situation right now, but I've got a king that I'm going to go home to, and I have a future that I cannot wait to experience more of that. And if this is the way I can serve God and give my life for other people, then I'm willing to do it. And in fact, I think I can die better than you can. Now, if you want, you can prove me wrong and live a life that will be different. But that's part of the beauty of this quest that you and I are part of. That's part of the beauty of the conquering hope that Jesus has given us, is that we do not have to be afraid of death. Now that to me is still something I struggle with, and even though I know that as a Christian I should deny myself and all the motives in the heart that I am, and if I do that, then dying a physical death should not be such an issue to me. But there is a tension there, is there not? It is still tough in all the ways to deny who you are and let Jesus be king enough to where you would give your life for other people. To die and to give that up is such a difficult concept. But we see that there is hope in these situations that changes the whole story. And so one of the things I think is really cool is, you know what, there's kind of those moments in life where you can't really get a do-over. You can't rerun a red light and do it all over again. Or you can't get that haircut after you got too much hair chopped off, or you can't deal with that situation when that phone call comes and the doctor tells you what you wish that you didn't say. You can't always go back and deal with those situations the way that you wish that you could. And you have those moments where if it would only be different, then things would work out a little bit better. And you are a part of a family. You are a part of a church. You are in a kingdom where the king says, man, don't put a period where I'm going to put a comma. Right? Don't live a life where I think sometimes we have a very preventative kind of faith where we say, God, would you, if you had only been here, then these would be different. You could protect me. And these aren't bad things. If when I go, give me travel mercies as I drive and go do these things, God, would you protect my family as we do these things? That's great. But then there's a different kind of faith that says, you know what? Come what may, whatever it is that you've got for me, I believe that there is more to the story, right? Don't put a period where God puts a comma, because it is not over until God says it is over. The story is not over until He says everything has been done. And so the courage that you need to understand in the hope that He's given you is don't ever think those moments where you would think that they are over and the hurt is far beyond what you can comprehend or deal with. That He says, man, don't write the story off until I say it's over, because I'm proving to you in this story and in many, many more, when most people thought the story was over, there is so much more to it, and you get to be a part of that. And that's where the miracle comes in, and I need you to consider it. And so if you want a miracle in your life, you've got to take that risk. And here's the thing, you can continue to live your life and kind of hope that God will show up in different ways, that there'll be more meaning and purpose to who you are. But if you would consider that Jesus is who He says He is, and that as C.S. Lewis put, as you decide and look around at the different roles He might fit, that He isn't a lunatic. Things He did seem so crazy, but they seem to add up. And He's not a liar, that He in fact is Lord of all. And that there's a relationship you get to have with that person, but it requires a risk. You've got to decide if for you, if He is worth trusting everything to. Because there's a big problem in your life, and that is often you. And there is a solution to that big, big problem. There is a miracle that can happen in your life, but you've got to decide if you want to take that step towards it. You can conclude that your story is over when you breathe your loud breath. And even though you don't know what it looks like on the other side, there's that risk of, what if I'm wrong, or what if this isn't true, and what is this all really for? And if you want a big miracle in your life, then you've got to understand that there is a way to find hope, and there is a way to live forever in the kingdom. But you've got to come to terms with the fact there's a problem and that it can be fixed. And that you can have it forever in your life, in your story. And it doesn't end when you take your last breath. In fact, it only gets started. There is a radically different reality that comes for you. And what if we live our lives where, I love this kind of idea, still blows my mind to think that if I would live my life as if Jesus died yesterday, he rose again from death this morning, and he's coming back to bring me home tonight. What if I lived every day like that? What if I really believed that he is who he says he is? And that I believe if I would put my hope and my trust in him, in all the situations that I'm in, that he would give me hope. Even when things seem hopeless, even when the timing's off, and I don't have the courage, and I feel left all by myself, there is always more hope. And there's a miracle waiting for you, but you've got to choose to take that other step. Right? And I love what Pete had to say, and this is cool from David Crowder Band, where it says, man, I should have been in the fire, but now the fire's in me. And you get to be a part of something more, something different. But you've got to choose that. The miracle can happen in your life, but you've got to take that step and say, I want to know more about him. I want him to be Lord of my life. I will take that risk. I will let him be the King of Kings. And if you do, just watch and see the miracles that he will pour out into your life. But you won't see them until you let him be in charge first. Here's the craziest thing, too, is that, there was lots of tears and emotion that I don't know. I've not lost someone that close. Losing my dad was one of those things where, at the age that I was and the chapter of life that I was in, didn't have a whole lot of words, and I didn't know what hope would look like. But my dad, he knew what I wanted to do for a living, and saw that I was a young man going to Bible college and unsure about what that was even for. And I went to go visit him in California when I was actually way far away, and I got a chance to see him. It was tough because I brought my family, and Genesis was just a little baby, and I was so excited for him to see he was a grandpa. But when I got there, he was already so out of it that he wasn't there. It was my dad laying in bed, but my dad wasn't there. And so my daughter didn't really get to be my dad, and it was really tough. And I went back home and I thought, okay, well, give it a shot. Gave it a shot, figured I would do the best that I could, and then out of nowhere, a couple days later, I got a phone call from my dad, and how was this happening? He had come to his senses. He had awoken from a near coma from what I could understand at the time. And he told me, he said, Jake, I noticed all the things you've been doing, and I had a moment where I realized my life was flashing before my eyes. And Jake, I just want you to know, I know you're over there in Florida, but I'm going to go get baptized, and I'm going to do all this, and I'm so excited for what God's got for me. I couldn't comprehend that was happening, because I was convinced there was no more hope. And I wanted to do everything that I could do. But for me, I knew that the best thing I could do then and now is if I just continue to live this stuff out and trust that he's going to take care of all the details, I'm going to worry about it anymore. And so for me, the closest I can come to their story is with my dad. And here's what I know. Here's what I know for them and for me. I think when Lazarus was in the tomb, when my dad was unrecognizable, I didn't have a whole lot of laughter or smiles. There was more tears and hurt. But then when I saw that Jesus came into the situation for Lazarus and for my dad, I couldn't stop smiling. I couldn't stop laughing, because the story had changed. And every story can change because of his power to overcome death. It is never too late for the King. He is always in charge. And when you might think there's a period, it might just be a comma. And it is not over until God says it's over. And there are still miracles that happen today. And I believe in that with everything that I have in me. That he isn't done until he says he is. And I can't do it very well on my own. The only solution I know to the problems in my life, specifically me, the problem that I am, is the miracle of the King that set me free and gave me life eternal. And that's the one that we celebrate. And that's what the story points to. And that's the hope that you and I get to carry with us every day. And I love that it's not just one day a year. This isn't a message that I worked on and got nervous about for just Easter. But I get to live this every single day and know that it's not over until he says it is. It is not done until the King says it's done. And that I have hope in him. And I might walk into situations with tears, but he will bring me out of them with smile and with laughter. And know that you serve a King that is compassionate, that calls you to have courage, that is consistent, will always be there even when you think he will not. Trust in him and know that there is always hope for the hopeless. If you would, let's pray and let's sing our great King. I'd asked you, God, before I got up here that you would speak through me because I don't know what I'm doing, man. I'm a hot mess, and I'm so grateful for what you said through me today. Man, a lot of stuff I didn't think I was going to say. I'm grateful, God, that you take the worst of us and make the best out of us. I'm so thankful that you have resurrected the darkness in our heart and given us a new life. I pray that every day that we come into this place, we walk out of this place, we would remember the hope that we have. We would know that just in the way we live our life and have a perspective that says that you're not done until you say you are, that we would have hope that lasts forever, God. Thank you for the story that we get to be a part of. And thank you that when it seems like it might be over, there is still more to the story. And there's more to mine. I know there is more to theirs. There's more to this church. God, help us to never lose sight of the bigger picture and have a small-minded, narrow vision that says, enough is enough, that you have made and given us more than we could ever imagine. Thank you, God, for the hope that set us free, the story we can be a part of. We love you. We thank you, Father. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen.